I'd like to call the Finance Administration and Economic Development Committee to order. It is Monday, April 17th. Everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I would ask for someone to approve our agenda today.
I'll approve it, make a motion rather.
I'll second
I'll
it.
approve it, yeah.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
No.
Seeing no discussion, we approve without objection, and I do not see any objection. Let's move on then to look for a motion to approve our minutes from April 17th, 2023. If I can have a motion to approve those, please.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second it, I'll be happy to.
Thank you, Ted. And any discussion on those? Seeing no discussion, is there any objection to us approving those? Seeing no objection, they have been approved. And that moves us then on to our citizens' comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like 3 minutes, or is anyone online, Miss Sarah?
No, sir.
No one online, and I see no one moving here to come forward. So let's move on then. Let's close citizen comment period. And Mr. Greenway, the floor is yours. I know you wanted to address us, so yes, sir, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to remind everyone that this coming Saturday, June 24th, we are having a employee appreciation event. We're shutting down the Buckwalter Recreation Center so that all the employees can come there and enjoy some food and some recreational activities. I understand there's going to be bounce castles, water slides, a Dunkin' booth that a certain individual that will remain nameless
wonder
will
who
be
that
in.
would be.
So y'all come out. If you all would give your numbers to Sarah today, if you're interested in coming and you haven't registered yet, let me know, and I'll take care of you, Councilmember Bartholomew. So anyway, just wanted y'all to be aware of that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Greenway. And if that is it, then we will then move on to our agenda items. And our first agenda item is discussion and presentation of year-to-date financial statements for fiscal year 2023. Mr. Hayes Williams, we're not tired of you yet. We're almost through budget season here, so please come forward and
Thank you, Chairman. You're very gracious to me. I know y'all are tired of me at this podium, and y'all will have a vacation for about a month and a half. So anyways, can you pull up the reports, and we'll just go through them that way. Yes. Anyway, so as all of y'all know already, the 2024 budget was approved, which thank y'all. That was a great thing to get behind us. Currently, my staff is working on the budget book so we can submit it to the GFA for the Certificate of Excellence. I want to go over our financial statements that we have right now. This first page is our revenues, a summary of our revenues. It looks like the majority of our revenues are going to be are exceeding our expectations. There's some that are a little low right now. Our intergovernmental are low. We're still waiting our state aid to subdivision for the fourth quarter, but typically we don't see that until the July and August time frame. We did get our homestead exemption, which I have talked about before. The total that Beaufort County and all the municipalities received was $4.8 million. The general fund portion of the homestead exemption was $2,074,840. For those of y'all, I know there's some new faces on the Finance Committee. For those of you that don't know what the homestead exemption is, a complete exemption of taxes on the first $50,000 in fair market value of your legal residence for homeowners that are over age 65, totally and permanently disabled or legally blind. And to get this, if you're eligible, you need to contact the county auditor. So that's the first one. Fines and forfeitures are also currently lagging. We don't think they're going to hit budget, but they'll be pretty close. And then miscellaneous revenues and use of prior year fund balance. That's, looks like we haven't done much there, which we really haven't. The use of prior year fund balance is basically a placeholder, so we can expend funds. There's a part of the slide that I'll explain later on down the road. Can you go to the next page, please? Okay. So we have expenditures. It looks like the majority of our departments this year are going to have surpluses currently. And I'm probably going to get you to keep scrolling. You need to probably go down like to the third page of expenditures. So that's revenue one, and then there's another revenue page and then 2 expenditure pages.
The normal page?
Mm-hmm. Maybe I think is that revenues? Does it still say revenues? Go 2 more pages. It'll be on the last page of the, okay. So detail of expenditure. So y'all see, so we have everything from the different departments as of 5/31, and I kind of struck a total up top to show y'all where we are, and it's about $119 million. And then there was uses of our fund balance. There's $22 million that we transferred over in the CIP fund, and that was all budgeted or done via ordinance. You had $9 million that was originally budgeted for the CIP for them to fund various projects. We had the condemnation of Hellsman Way, which was in ordinance 2235. The condemnation of Melrose Landing for $1 million plus in 2237. We had funding ordinance 2241 that used fund balance to purchase 1505 North Street for $630,000 and a transportation project of $6 million. And then funding ordinance 2023-11, we had $250,000 in there for funding of DSN pathways and then repairs of Beaufort County property of $2 million. And a lot of those projects won't be finished by the end of the year, but they're in the capital project fund that roll over the next year. We also have purchased out of the general fund 2 Mullet Street for $1,936,000 and the cooler track of $5 million. So that's kind of where we are, where we have used our fund balance to do a lot of really good things and make some big purchases during the year. Okay, can you go to the next slide? And this is the CIP fund. Currently, we've spent and covered about $17.3 million of this total, and we have about $15.3 million to spend left, which most of that will roll over. And then if we can go to the last slide, there are some questions about the rural and critical lands program and kind of where they are. This is a synopsis of it year to date with fund balance and everything. So they have roughly about $14 million if year to date, and then below it, it has all the proposed projects. The first 2 y'all already know about, Cotton Hall and God, I can't see those. But yeah, those 2, the proposed projects, we can't really divulge because we're doing due diligence in the process of negotiations, but they have it listed down. So if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, that little number at the end of the thing is what would be projected. All these projects went through at the end of the year. But by, not at the end of the year, at the end of whenever we get done with the rural and critical lands program. So there'll probably be a discussion on what to do. Hopefully we can find something to do with that $51,000. So anyways, that's all I have for those. We are going to be redeeming the 2013A bond, which y'all passed an ordinance on, and we'll be paying that off before the fiscal year end out of fund balance. We're also going to be paying our 4th out of 10 payments to the Culinary Arts Institute for TCL in the amount of $800,000. $500,000 is our portion, $50,000 is the town of Bluffton's portion, and then $250,000 is the school district's portion. We put on our next hat for something that we have to do. So as soon as we get done with our budget, we'll be starting on our 2023 audit. So we've gotten a list of schedules that are needed from the auditor, and we're getting that up and going right now. And the last thing that we'll be doing right now is we're going to be rolling out a new chart of accounts. because the schemes have changed within Munis, and that should be like in the first quarter of 2024. And that's really all I have. I know y'all are probably tired of hearing me up here, so if y'all have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Any questions? Mr. Taberner, go ahead.
He knew I was gonna ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're gonna do the new chart of accounts, so when we talked about the budget, all those zero things are going away?
Yes,
All
ma'am.
those line items?
So, would be 30 line items for supplies. And then they may be office supplies, or medical supplies, or cleaning supplies, or, they're all supplies. Supplies are supplies are supplies. So we've condensed those down. The department codes are gonna be fairly close, they're gonna be close to what the Oregon object codes are already. But the way Munis is going right now, they're getting away from the Oregon object codes and going to departments. So it was something that we needed to do anyway. But it also helps us with our project accounting, so we can track these projects that we have a lot easier, especially over multiple funds, and keep them under one umbrella. And that was really what the thrust of it was. But yes,
It'll
ma'am.
cut down on pages in the book too.
Yes, we'll become a little more eco-friendly on the pages of the book that we have, hopefully.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question.
Yep, go ahead, Ms. Sauer.
Rural and critical lands, the expenditures for the passive parks is not on this sheet.
No, ma'am.
And where are we on that?
That's in a different fund, and these funds are really for land preservation, fee simple purchases and easements. And I guess that was part of the 20 million, out of the $25 million bond. This was a 20 million. There is a $5 million in there. The $5 million, I'd be more than happy to prepare a schedule for you when I get back and
Okay.
get it to you tomorrow,
Okay.
if that would help.
Just so we know where we're at on that.
Stephanie is doing a tremendous job of keeping that one under wraps. She's doing a great job. So,
Okay, that would be good to have. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
anybody else?
Any other questions? And if I could, Mr. Williams, commend you and Mr. Butts and your staff. You guys have done an incredible job this year as we come to the end of our fiscal year. I mean, I don't think it's ever gone so smooth. It's been more transparent than what it is right now. So again, you guys have done an incredible job. I know you never get enough credit for things that happen. You only get credit for things when they're not correct. But I can tell you guys have done a great job, so thank you.
Thank you. I'd like you to include Denise Christmas and Christine Webb, and Miss Richland loves to put her finance hat on every now and then. Don't let her tell you different. She
I'd like to second that.
She gets tired of that DCA position every now and then, likes to nerd out on numbers. So anyways, thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on then to item number 8 in our agenda, and actually 8, 9, and 10. We will handle each separately, but they're all related to the same issue, same item. So if we could, is it Miss Sarah Weathers? Miss Sarah, you're with Pope Flynn. If you could just give us a little background of who you are and how you're here to see us, and then go ahead and jump into your presentation.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm Sarah Weathers. As mentioned, I'm here on behalf of the Fripp Island Public Service District. We also have the chairman of the commission with us here today. We are here in regards to the general obligation bond issuance that the commission has determined necessary. They are seeking to issue $5,250,000 worth of general obligation bonds. These are to address some kind of sudden, unexpected needs. The vast majority of the funds are intended to aid with some erosion and infrastructure problems that they have, specifically with the bridge and the revetment out there. There's also a small portion of the funding that would go towards fire improvements. These bonds are being issued outside of the district's 8% debt limit. So these bonds will be put to a vote by their qualified voters of the district. So even if authorized by county council, they will still need to be approved by voters in the district. There is a corresponding millage increase that will occur. We're still working with the financial advisors to determine exactly what that will be, and it will also depend on what is approved by the electors. But the process for how this will works through Title VI, Chapter 11. It's a pretty lengthy process, even with the qualified electors. It kind of adds another layer there. But the timeline that we have proposed is that at your June meeting, you will hopefully approve a resolution calling for a public hearing and give first reading to an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the bonds subject to the referendum. In July, we would actually hold the public hearing and then hopefully give second favorable reading to the ordinance. And then in August, we would hopefully ask that you enact the ordinance and then adopt another resolution that would call for the referendum. We would then, at that point in August, work with the Election Commission. We've already been in communication with them some to let them know that hopefully this will be in the pipeline and what the notice will look like. But following August, if the ordinance is enacted and the resolution is adopted, we would then work closely with the Election Commission to get this on the ballot at the November general election. If it is a successful referendum, we would come before you one final time for you to adopt a resolution affirming the results as certified by the Election Commission. And once that whole process is through, the district would then begin communicating with the banks and hopefully get the bonds issued before the calendar year is out. So it's a lengthy process, but one that the commission has determined necessary, and we hope you will as well. So I'm happy to take any questions on the process or the bonds and kind of what they're looking for there.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question that came up when I was reading this. What is the aerial apparatus that's being proposed?
The aerial apparatus is it's a term for the fire truck. They've got ladder trucks, and then the aerial apparatus, I'm not sure. It's a
Ladder, okay, all right. I was thinking something cool,
think
a
it's
drone or something, you know?
it's like the way the ladder moves, like it's.
I got you.
Goes
I got
way
you.
up, yeah.
I was hoping for something more fun. Come on.
I think there's some beach rescue equipment in there as well, perhaps. That's kind of the boring stuff.
Thanks.
So, yeah. Any other questions?
Any other questions? If you could, please introduce the commission.
Yes, this is Ed Wetzel.
Mr. Wetzel?
I'm the chairman of the Fripp Island Public Service.
Good. I think you've been here before. Appreciate you being here. Thank you.
I've been in meetings before, but not before this
Okay.
committee. So
Good.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so what do you need from us today? So obviously, this is something that we look to, oh, go ahead, Mr. Glover.
Yes, sir.
I got a question and I would offer it as a motion, but
Okay.
The board itself, the commission, voted to bring this forward. What was the vote? Was it unanimous?
Vote was unanimous. We have six commissioners, and the vote was 6-0.
And I would like to put it on, which one you want? You want all three?
Do all three?
Do all three.
All right, we're going to do all three.
Then I would motion that we place this before our council body in honoring their issuing the bond of up to $5,250,000 for whatever they say
The
here.
stated purposes.
All
Yeah,
three of
that's
these.
great.
For the stated purpose.
Is there, we can go ahead and do that all three at the same time? Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
I'll second that. Oh, we all second.
I'll second.
All right, Ms. Howard, second that. So is there any more discussion?
Just real quickly, when you're voting, just elected elected voters, registered voters is the only one that will be voting on this, right?
Correct. Of Fripp Island.
Oh, Fripp
That are
Island. Yeah, I
within that
understand that.
public service
Yeah.
district. Mhm.
Yeah. What is the percentage of your non-residential homeowners?
And that's really a good question. We have about 2,000 lots, of which 1,700 are customers of the public service district.
Okay.
So 1,700 lots are actually occupied or built on. But it's a little hard to tell because we have about 800 voters, but those may occupy, say, 2 per house. So I don't know what the percentage is,
Gotcha.
but it's less than 50%, I would say, are full-time residents.
Okay.
We were just discussing that actually. So,
Oh,
very
okay.
timely.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing no discussion, is there any objection?
No.
And seeing no objection, we will pass all three with no objection.
Right, and this will be moved to the
To county
June 26th meeting.
Yes,
Thank y'all.
great.
Welcome.
All right, well, let's move on then to number 10. You already beat me to the punch. Number 11. Number 11, the presentation of the 2023 Beaufort County Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And Mr. Atkinson,
Yes, sir.
Lead us
So
off then?
I asked Shannon if she wanted to introduce the consultant, and she said, no, you can. Okay, well, that's fine too. So for about the past 20 months, our consultant, along with our staff and many members of our community have been working hard on a Parks and Rec master plan. A few months ago, you were presented with a bulk of this information. Some of it's going to be a repeat, but today we have brought the plan full circle. So I'd like to introduce Kyle Theodore, Mark Baker, and Nilay Bhatt, I hope I got your name right, with Wooden Partners, and they're going to present our Parks and Rec master plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of council, Mr. Greenway, my name's Mark Baker, and we thank you for the opportunity not only to present to you today, but to work on this project. It's been a very exciting journey to begin to look at how we can enhance and improve the park and recreation system for Beaufort County. We learned a lot in this journey, and we're going to share with you that journey. Again, my name's Mark Baker with Wooden Partners, Kyle Theodore with Wooden Partners, and Nilay Bhatt with Next Practice Partners are the essential consultants that make up this team and the planning process that we've gone through. What we're going to do today is work through this agenda very quickly as we can. We have a lot of information to cover, but as you look at the agenda that we have up on the screen, each of those represent an element of the planning process that we've gone through, which has been very comprehensive. The demographics and studying that, community engagement, programs and services analysis and staffing, park and facility inventory, what do you have today going forward, and then combining all of that to come up with a level of service analysis, in other words, projecting out what the recreation needs are for your constituents, and then developing mapping that shows where those facilities are and how those services are being delivered, and identifying the gaps in service. So the equity mapping is a very important part of that. And then a sports and tourism and economic impact assessment. So if we were to begin to say, what can Beaufort County do in the realm of sports tourism, how might that affect the way you deliver recreation services? And then lastly, a capital improvement plan. And what those costs would be if you move forward with the recommendations that we're projecting, and then the next steps in us wrapping up the master plan. But first, a little bit about the firms that are working on this. Wooden Partners, many of you know our firm and know us. We are working with Beaufort County on many projects, specifically park and recreation design, facility design. We're a physical park planning firm, but we're also a needs assessment firm. If you look at the bottom half of the slide, park and rec needs assessments that we've worked on, Savannah, Charleston, Columbia for cities and then counties, Richland County, Columbia, Richmond County in Georgia, and then Columbia County in Georgia. We just finished up a significant plan for them and 3 major parks, 3 or 4 major parks. So we do work throughout the Southeast, but we love it when we get a chance to work here at home. So thank you for that opportunity. And then many parks that we're working on with you. A lot of, pretty exciting parks that you have going on. Buckwalter, Burton Wells, New Riverside, which is exciting. We're also working for the town of Bluffton, New Riverside Barn Park, which is really going to be exciting. And then just finished up Low Country Celebration. I don't know if you've been to Hilton Head lately, but one of our parks there on the island. And then Nilay, I'll let you talk a little bit about pros.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everybody. They asked me to keep it short, so I promise I'll be done by 6 o'clock.
Sure.
I'm just kidding. My name is Nilay Bhatt. I am the founder and CEO with Next Practice Partners, formerly a principal with Pros Consulting when we started the project. Have done a couple hundred of these plans all over the country, Anchorage, Alaska to Allentown, Pennsylvania, and everything in between. And I've had the fortune of working with Kyle and Mark from before I had any gray hair, so it's been a long time. But so again, it's a pleasure to sort of help bring this combination of hyper local like they are with their regional expertise and our national expertise to one of the fastest growing communities that I've recently worked with, that is Beaufort County. Right, and so part of the thought as we go with these plans is looking at, again, how do we bring in what your community's needs and values are and help bring that to light. One of the key components of that to help is also ETC Institute, that is a national statistically valid survey firm. And I'm about to show you their survey findings as well as we go through the process. Just a quick snapshot through logos from nationally accredited to national gold medal agencies to state and national associations that this team has been a part of in the last several years as well. So that's the body of work and the experience that has been borne forth to this project. So quick snapshot of the planning process. In general, we look at this in 3 steps, right? Any of these master plans are, in summary, where are we today? Where do you want to go? And how can we help get there, right? So as we've gone through all of this, that was the idea in the early stages to assess the existing conditions, which we're going to share in a moment. Ask the community where they want the county to go, add in the trends and demographic shift that we're seeing, and then working with staff, the capital improvement recommendations, all the rest to say, what does that roadmap for the future look like? So a couple of ways, one quick thing to start as well, Play Beaufort County. This was a multilingual, ADA accessible and mobile friendly website that is still live as well. 82 different languages. Every meeting was publicized here in advance. So at the end of this process, when you're about to adopt the plan, every community has 2 people that are going to show up and tell you, I didn't know about this plan. Nobody asked me. Clearly, this wasn't be valid. Now you can point to a 24/7, 365 mechanism that was available for every community member from anywhere, anytime. So if after 20 months of this being available, if they chose not to engage, shame on them. It's not for your or staff's lack of trying, right? And that's a big part of, similar to your budget process, introducing transparency also in the process, that people know what's happening. And once the plan's done, it'll be uploaded here as well. So people also get to continue seeing the findings and the results. So as the community goes, so will the plan. And as I mentioned, you're one of the fastest growing agencies I know. This is based on census data as well as ESRI, Environmental Services Research Institute, and census projections. They are at best projections, right, from 5 years out. The key point though to recognize here is national average for growth is about 0.75 to 0.80. You're almost twice that, right? And continuing to grow at least 25 to 30% higher than national averages for the next 15 years, right? So that's a significantly higher population base that will require recreation and park needs that we've got to be planning for. In addition to that, this is the 8-segment breakdown. The bottom in blue is the under 18, all the way to the top is 75 plus. The yellow and the blues, if you look at the extreme right-hand side, 2037, that's going to be the largest chunk of the population, and I refuse to call them seniors. They don't behave like it. It's very much an active adult population. That's going to be more than 2 out of 5 people in the county, 41%. At the same time, we have 40% projected in the next 15 years that are under the age of 35, which means on one hand, you're going to have active adults. On the other hand, families with young kids, that this plan has to look at from a multi-generational perspective, which we have. Race and ethnicity continues to diversify to some degree. About 1 in 3 people on average, about 30%, are what the census calls any other than white alone. Hispanic Latino on the right-hand side, about 1 in 7 individuals that are part of, from an ethnicity standpoint, Hispanic or Latino in ethnicity. As we've seen across the country as well, different race and ethnic groups also have different recreation preferences. And so the idea is to ensure that you're looking at a customized approach county-wide as well that meets different residents and their needs the way they have it. Ultimately, though, it's also a matter of income and what's realistic and affordable. You have a higher than average education level and a higher than average income level in the county, which means what's good enough in most places isn't good enough in Beaufort County. The blue bar is the per capita income. The orange is the median household income. Per capita is every individual. Household is every person over the age of 16 living under the same roof. For both, you are significantly higher than state and national averages. Certain expectation of quality and a certain availability of disposable income that this could potentially bring to bear. All this then looks at the recreation participation trends, and no surprise with the top two here, golf and tennis. The red line is the national average of 100. This is done by the Sports and Facility Industry Association. Every year, they look at this annual census, and the national average is what this each and every sport fitness activity is compared to. Unfortunately, they don't count for pickleball in this in this categorization, but the way it's grown in the last couple of years, it's a matter of time before it starts getting included in this as well. This doesn't mean people participate in this activity within the county. They could be going anywhere. It simply means your constituents like to participate in this activity no matter where they go. Fitness, a majority of them, walking for exercise, swimming, Pilates, weightlifting, are all at or higher than national averages. A few others are lower. Some of that could also just be a function of additional indoor recreation spaces, which allow for a number of these activities, which you as a county overall are deficient, as we're about to show you in some of the later slides. And then outdoor activity, again, there's a reason people want to be here and love being here as well. It's the outdoors. Fishing, biking, rock climbing, archery, hiking, a whole bunch of them are certainly higher than average. And I do want to point out a couple, rock climbing and archery specifically, because when we talk of sports tourism, I'm going to draw your attention back to this as well as an activity here. So in general, you have a fast-growing, aging but very active, diverse and higher than average income level based community that enjoys sports, especially golf and tennis, enjoys fitness and wellness activities and would probably do more if opportunities were available, and loves the outdoors as well, including some niche activities such as archery too. Thoughts, questions, comments? Anyone wondering what the heck was he smoking when he came up with these?
Yeah.
Bless you. Okay.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I see cycling on the road, and then you got cycling in the mountains. Is that a generic survey? Because I just can't imagine mountain cycling in Beaufort, that's all.
No, so good point. And that's why I said, right, this isn't something that people do in your geography. It simply means people living in Beaufort County do or do not participate in that activity no matter where they go. So they could be doing this anywhere in the country, but this is a survey of your residents that was undertaken 12 months ago.
Okay,
Yeah,
appreciate that.
of course.
Mr. Pat, so just so we know, we look at that, what would another community look like? I mean, obviously, we're almost 100 at each of those. Is that normal, or you keep calling us an active community? So what would another city look like?
Just below national averages, or they may have one or two that are higher than national average. You have almost 6 of the top 10 that are higher than national averages. So specifically, I think anywhere 105 or closer to 110 and higher is significantly higher. Most of them cluster closer to the mean, right? So they'll be 95 to 100 or 100 to 105. You know, a couple of them, fishing, biking, both are like close to 110 or over almost 130. That's much higher.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so community engagement, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle and then Mark.
Listen, community engagement has been a very important part of this study, as it should be, to reaching out to the community. And what we found is that it's a community that cares deeply about this topic, recreation, of people with a lot of very vocal and outspoken opinions as we participated in this community engagement process, which honestly helped us quite a bit through the planning process, because we can't do it without the participation from the community resident. We conducted public meetings at Buckwalter, Burton Wells, Dale, Scott, Lynn Brown, each of those centers, and the participation was phenomenal. We had a lot of people come, and a lot of very outspoken and a lot of very verbal comments that were very helpful. And then additional meetings with staff, Devosky Allen by Zoom, Beaufort County Sports Council, and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. So I'm going to let Kyle go over what we heard and what some of those findings were.
Thank you. And y'all have heard this before. We presented previously to you, so if I cover it too quickly, please don't hesitate to interrupt me or throw your hand up and ask me to back up a little bit. But when we started, as Mark just mentioned with the community engagement meetings, in addition to the general input that we received, sort of generically, we also solicited input by asking 3 specific questions. And those were, what are the strengths of the Parks and Rec Department? What are the opportunities for improvement? And what is the one most important thing to you that this report needs to address? And in terms of strengths, these probably don't surprise you at all, that there's a diversity of offerings, that the county does well with the resources that they have to work with, that you have a very hardworking and dedicated staff. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank 2 that we've been working with from the very beginning. They've been very engaged, and that's Shannon Loper and Chuck Atkinson have been helping us through this process. That your field conditions are great at 2 locations were pointed to specifically, Burton Wells and Oscar Frazier, and the rec centers at Burton Wells and Buckwalter were great. Your youth athletics and active sports are doing well, and that there are scholarships available and partnerships with other groups. So a lot of input in terms of what you're doing well. Opportunities for improvement, renovating older facilities and centers, and we're going to come back and talk about that in a little bit. The same is true with consolidating dispersed playing fields, that folks feel that the facilities are here to serve locals first, and then we can accommodate tournaments and out-of-towners once we've served your local constituents. That you need more youth after-school and summer programs, that they'd like to see artificial turfs to alleviate overuse. That there's a need for increased offerings for seniors, that rural areas are underserved. Please consider fairness and equity, and adding a northern Buckwalter type facility is needed. And I want to circle back for a second because staff has already reacted to some of these comments. So some of the things that are on this opportunity list have already been addressed, and they're out ahead of the game.
I'm sorry, could you go over the opportunities again, because they're not up there?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
There
I just
you
wanted
go. And then, what is the one thing? And that was, if you had a magic wand and you could make one particular thing happen that's most important to you, what would you want that to be? Yep. And that is to provide affordable programs that are convenient, with less travel time involved, that you have equity and fairness in the rural areas. There's, again, interest in artificial turf to help offset the use that some of your fields are receiving. There's interest in a central aquatic facility and splash pads. Again, mention of programs for seniors and for kids, opening up the closed centers, differentiating the needs of the north and the south portions of the county. And lastly, some folks had asked for line items for funding within your budget for St. Helena, Ladies Island, and Tefusky Island.
Great, thank you again.
So here's the thing, when you have meetings like this that are all subjective in nature, if you had 100 people like me show up, you better believe the most important thing in Beaufort County is more cricket fields. Which may not be reflective of the entire community, which is why you need a public opinion survey that is scientific and statistically valid. That's what this process through EDC did. They send this out randomly to households throughout the county, mailed several thousand of these because usually you get about a 10%, maybe 15% response rate. And the community exceeded the goal we had. The goal was 300 for your sample size to be statistically valid. We got almost 20% higher than that. And all the mumbo jumbo on the last line just means that for any process to be scientific, I have to be able to repeat the process over and over again and get consistent results. And what this tells me is 95 out of 100 times, if I were to do the survey, the results you will get will be in a margin of error of plus or minus 5.2%. The sample also matches the demographics of the community at large. So you know this is representative of the larger community. It's not taken over by any special interest group. It is random, it is anonymous, and it is only your residents that have taken this survey. Unlike anything online where you have no way of knowing who took the survey. So this was done as a combination of first a mail, where they had an option to do it through a call center on the phone, and they had a one-time use link per household if they wanted to take it online. So that's how the survey was administered. I emphasize this because that's critical in building trust in the findings you're about to see. So I'm going to pause for a moment. If you have any questions about the survey process, I'm happy to answer that or further elaborate. Okay? So then, in general, this is in the last, again, right, this was done in 2022. So in the last 8 or 9 months, you have about 4 to 5% higher than national average for participation or visitation. It's about 82% nationally that people say, yes, they have visited a park in the last 2 years or a recreation facility. Overall, the physical condition, only 7% rated it as poor. Additional 16% though rated it as fair, right? So about almost 1 in 4 said it's fair or poor. If I'm being nitpicky, I would say your goal in the future ought to be, can we shrink the number of people that rate you as good and grow the ones that say excellent? Right? 20%, no matter what you do in life, you know are going to be unhappy with you, right? Some of it is perception, some frankly is a reality depending on where somebody lives in the county. But beyond that, I think that's really the goal to aspire for. How they learn about it, word of mouth is the biggest one currently, followed by the 2 digital tools, Facebook and the county's website. How they would like to learn are still more digital tools, right? So again, more and more as people see this as well, for the younger audiences, if they're teenagers, it's usually TikTok. If they're in their 20s, it's more Instagram. 30s and 40s, it could be Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook, and so on, right? And then the county website continues to be a go-to avenue for folks as well, followed by email notifications. So in general, a largely digital outreach is what they would like to have in the future. Program participation is right at national average, right? It's about 31, 32%. You're right there. Certainly an area for growth as well, but it's also a function of spaces, right? From the aquatic facility or the rec facility, we got to have more spaces for more people to be able to participate. Those that have participated, though, only 4% rated the programs as poor, right? That's wonderful. If you get people, they like it. You have about, in this case, 76%, so more than 3 out of 4 have said you are good or excellent. Another nitpicky point, I'd love to reduce the ones that say good and grow the ones that say you're excellent. Barriers, right? This is a great opportunity. It's low-hanging fruit, and it's frankly the least expensive barrier to overcome, lack of awareness. More than 1 in 2 people have said they don't participate because of lack of awareness. Nationally, this is always in the top 3 reasons, frankly, because there's just so much out there, right? From all the activities, people's lives are busier, all the rest. But that average is about 30 to 32%. In our case, it's 54%, right? So I think dedicated investing in telling your story, in more branding and outreach, continue to look at ways to have staff grow what you're doing as well, is certainly going to help bring more people to the programs as well, to participate in programs, activities, and events. Not interested, too busy, clearly you can't control that. Otherwise, 2 of your top 4 don't know what programs are offered or not aware of facility locations. What people are most willing to fund, right? That's always a big piece here, is trails and connectivity is number 1. 28% rated that in one of their top 4 choices. Develop trails, connect existing trails, develop walking, biking trails. And the third one is developing new indoor rec centers, replacing the old aging ones, followed by a new family aquatic center. So trails and recreation / aquatic facilities are certainly very big on the community's priorities for funding, followed by the top, rounding out the top 5 is fix what you have, just overall improvement in your existing parks. And you'll see these recommendations go through everything that Kyle and Mark are about to show you as a part of the CIP of how we look at these items. You know, when you have $100 million, it's a lot harder for people to allocate money. When you have 100, it becomes real. So we ask people, if you had $100, how would you want to spend it? By far, the number one, almost 30 cents on every dollar, they want you to spend on taking care and improving what exists, right? Improve, maintain existing parks and facilities, followed by acquire new parkland and open space, and then developing new indoor pool or aquatic facility and new indoor rec facility, right? So maintain what exists, plan for the future with the growth coming, and then fix, upgrade, add new recreation facilities / aquatic facilities. Overall value, again, you have about 17% that are very dissatisfied or dissatisfied cumulatively. Back to the 80-20, that's always going to be there. I think where we have the biggest opportunity is 38% today are neutral. How do we convert them into fans, followers, advocates, right? Because the more they use it, the more they're going to vote to fund, preserve, protect, and be stewards in the future, right? So that's an area for growth for us as well, certainly to look forward. And then based on the pandemic, these are some encouraging numbers in general. Based on the pandemic, this is nationwide. We ask people, how is the perception of value changed? What do you think of parks, rec, open spaces now when things were closed or in some places you didn't have access for a period of time? Only 7% said that the value in their minds has decreased. Compared to that, 7 times as many, 50% of the respondents said in their minds the perception of value has increased, somewhat or significantly, right? And if people perceive the value being higher, they're willing to pay for it. And that's what we asked the next one. Only 3% said reduce funding for parks, recreation trails, and open space. 17 times as many more people said increase funding for parks, recreation trails, and open space. In general, what we've seen across the country is this has gone from it's nice, it's important, to it is essential, to physical, mental, social, and emotional well-being, quality of life, talent attraction. If people can work from anywhere, they choose where they get a great quality of life and access to recreation and the outdoors. And that's what we're seeing in survey after survey across the country. Mr. Chair, were you going to say something?
Nope.
Okay. All right. I see your wheels spinning, so I wasn't sure if you were going to say something.
You're going good. Just keep, you're going
All right.
good.
Mark, can you hear me?
So,
Yeah, Larry, go ahead.
Can I ask a question before I go?
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Two observations. One, you're giving us a great deal of information that's very, very important to us, particularly as it relates to our efforts to create more outdoor space. I want to just circle back a minute to the questionnaire that you sent out. You had 351 responses. You say that the responses came from people in the county, and you know that because you sent the questionnaire directly to them in the county to their address. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so then, developing that a bit further, why don't you use internet questionnaires?
So if I use internet questionnaires only, I have no way of limiting who takes it, whether they live in the county or not, versus these were sent to household addresses acquired from within the county boundaries.
Yeah.
And any response that came outside of the county boundaries was discarded. So if somebody gave it to somebody else, they sent it out with a different address that wasn't in the county, that would not be accepted. So only your residents and constituents were allowed to vote or share their input for the future.
I get that. I think that's very important. I congratulate you for that effort.
Yeah.
But on the internet statements, if someone
Yes.
were to make a statement, or let's say sign a petition,
Yes.
that was available for a topic in the community, and it was sent out and received by the internet, you wouldn't really know where they came from anywhere in the world, would you?
No, you wouldn't. That's a great observation. Yeah.
Okay, so they could be anywhere. And is it possible that a person could send in more than one response on the internet?
On the internet, yes.
Okay, that's good. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Okay, I congratulate you on your effort. I think it's very valid, and I think it's a smart way to go. I was just curious about the use of internet petitions and their real validity
Yeah.
in assessing whether or not we have a real value established from the
Yes.
people who participate. Thank you
That's a
very
great
much.
observation. And I'll tell you, to build on that point, because this is random and limited, we basically duplicate the survey questionnaire, and through SurveyMonkey also have it on the project website I showed you for anybody to take. So if any of your constituents did not randomly get the survey mailed, they still have the opportunity to take the survey. We simply weigh the responses differently, and in the report that we'll get you, you will see a side-by-side comparison of the internet-only survey and the statistically valid survey.
So with the internet, you can't tell who they are or where they're sending it from.
Correct. And if there's a special interest,
Okay.
you're right. And if there's a special interest, the internet survey can be skewed a lot more by a certain special interest group asking everybody to go fill the survey, and you will see the differences, right? So that gives you a better sense to say which ones are truly community priorities, which ones are driven by a special interest group.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay?
Yep.
So very quickly then, program assessments, going back to the existing conditions. Staff help fill this information for the core program areas they currently have and how we want to manage forward. Based on that, we've looked at what 8 segments they served, and this gives them a structure, knowing the demographics, knowing the trends of how we want to keep growing the programs. They also tracked the distribution of all your programs across life cycles, and staff's doing wonderful. Only 3% of your programs are currently declining, which is again much lower than national averages, where it's anywhere from 0 to up to 10% that we recommend. But there's obviously room to ensure the programs that are new, 20%, 1 in 5 are brand new programs, can you sustain and grow them in the future? And then pricing strategy wise, right, there's always a balance between equity of access and financial sustainability, right? And that's the hat we wear as well, because to some degree, programs have got to be able to generate certain revenue or income in order to sustain themselves where possible. So this looks at the fact that every one of your program provides scholarships, subsidies, discounted rates, which is wonderful. But are there other pricing strategies for staff to be thinking about that can just ensure greater financial sustainability for certain programs, whether it's based on cost recovery goals, weekday versus weekend pricing, prime time versus non-prime time, and so on. So I'll have it, Kyle and Mark now talk about the existing conditions for the parks and facilities.
And as Neelay mentioned, from the survey that was completed, one of the most important things to your constituents is that you upgrade and take care of the facilities and parks that you currently have. So in order to understand that, our team inventoried and assessed all parks and facilities within your purview. The image on the left there that shows the county, all of the red dots that are shown are the parks and facilities that we visited over a 2-day period. And during those visits, we inventoried and assessed each park, and it was rated good, fair, or poor, and then each facility or component that's located within the park. So, you know, basketball courts, tennis courts, the community centers. But the important thing was the overall rating of the park as we visited each of them independently. And in general, what we observed is that Beaufort County is challenged. I mean, it's a large geographic area, and it has a varying population. There are densities throughout the county, and it is a challenge to serve those varying constituencies. Secondly, that the facilities are old. Some have been damaged by storms and are in disrepair, and they are in need of renovation or replacement, and some are just plain overused. Fields are being overused because of demand. Thirdly, rural areas are underserved due to geographic constraints. Through mapping, you can see the impacts of rivers and streams and marshes and having to navigate and circumvent those to get from one point to another. In total, there were 42 properties that were observed, and they were rated as good, fair, or poor, and we looked at whether they were used lightly, medium, or heavy.
I have a question on that, please.
Sure.
When you rate, would you go back? When you rate those at good, fair, poor,
Yes.
do you have a rating scale, or is this very just observational?
It's observational, but it also is based on a definition, and our final report will provide a
Well, so,
definition to
okay.
you of each of those 3 ratings. So,
Could you elaborate on some of the restraints in rural community?
I'm sorry?
Could you elaborate a little bit more about the type of restraints that
Yes, and we
in,
will.
in rural community that you said the service is not being provided?
And we will, Neely's going to share in a few minutes some equity maps that indicate facilities and parks and their service areas and how they are positioned. And I think that'll be
Okay.
informative. In addition, we created unique park models for Beaufort County. Parks are a system of delivery of recreation services. And so how those are used in Beaufort County is entirely unique to Beaufort County and couldn't apply, for example, as Mark was saying, in Columbia County, Georgia. So we started off, after we completed the inventory, developing park models that are specific for Beaufort County. And they range in size, starting with neighborhood parks, which are the smallest of the park types, 1/4 to 10 acres. And some examples of those types of parks are Shell Point Park, Scott Community Center, or Broomfield. The community park is in the 10 to 50 acre range. It's slightly larger. Some examples of those are Corson Tate Park, Bluffton Center, or Wesley Felix St. Helena Park. And then the largest of the 3 is regional parks, and those are 50 to 100 acres. There are 3 of those: Burton Wells, Buckwalter Park, and Oscar Fraser Park. In addition to that, you also have special purpose facilities or sites. And those are things that typically focus on one element, like a tennis center. Or maybe if you had it, you don't have a standalone senior center, or a standalone aquatic center. Examples of those are the Bluffton Pool, the Tennis Center, Beaufort Tennis Center, and Southside Tennis, as well as Wright Family Park in Bluffton. And then the 5th type of park is a natural or cultural resource park. Stephanie Nadgett is responsible for those. She's doing a great job with them. And they are site and resource driven, but they're mostly passive use. You won't find basketball courts or baseball fields within those. And some examples of those are the newly completed Whitehall Park, Crystal Lake Park, or Fort Fremont Preserve. And each of these park types is then used to create a level of service. That's, again, specific to Beaufort County, and Neely is going to talk about those levels of service.
Yeah, this one's going to be particularly hard to read. Do you have that on the screen in front of you as well? Okay.
It comes later. It's like a lag from there to here.
Okay, got it. So just as a framework, this is a singular structure that allows you to see all that the community has access to. It's not just what the county provides, it's also what the other service providers in the county provide as well. This won't go on the screen. The column on the extreme left is a park type, trail or outdoor amenities, and indoor amenities. From left to right, the second column is everything that the county has itself, based on the classifications that Kyle just shared, right? So neighborhood, community, regional parks, and so on. To its right are other service providers, right? So again, from the different entities, Hilton Head Island's an example as well. What other cities also provide offerings within the county to give you a sense of the total inventory and then against your current and your future populations, what does that translate to in terms of a level of service? So if you have 100 people and you have one tennis court, your level of service is 1 court per 100 people. If your population in the future is going to go up to 200 people and you still have 1 court, now your level of service suddenly became half. I'm going to need to add 1 more tennis court to simply preserve the level of service of 1 court per 100. So what we have here in that shaded green area is what is a recommended level of service in the future based on your community's responses, based on demographic shifts, and based on recreation trends. So what that allows you to do then is 2022, so currently, and in 5-year increments, 27 and 2032, you can see if you build nothing else, how much more will the need change by because your population is growing? What it does allow you as a living tool, though, is account for the development that's happening in the county, existing or in the future. So whether the county builds it or any other service provider adds any more fields, park acreages, trail miles, pools, whatever else, all that can be added to this living Excel model, and it will update for staff in real time how much more the need is in the future. 10 years from now, 7 years from now, you have the new census data. You look at that as well, and the population is higher than what's here. You update the population, it'll also update the future needs. So what this gives you a sense is for every single amenity type, park type, a sense of quantity and where you are meeting the needs, exceeding or underserving those needs. Now this is simply quantity, so the next one gives you a sense of access and where they are. By the way, a couple of key points to note here. The last two on the lines there are indoor amenities, indoor aquatic space. You're projected to be short about 70,000 square feet. Indoor recreation space, you're projected to be short about 136,000 square feet, right? So those are the two, if you saw even from what the community was willing to fund. Indoor recreation continue to come up really high. In the middle, you have the trails, and this is again 15 years from now. You're projected as a combination of paved and unpaved trails to be about 33 miles short. So if you think over 15 years, that's a couple miles a year, right, broken into increments. But those are some significant deficits, in addition to park land as well, and individual areas from playgrounds to splash pads to dog parks and so on. Thoughts, questions, comments? Okay, so
Square feet footage, you have it somewhere on your map where they are?
yes,
The
and that's the next map.
Oh,
I'm about to
go
show
ahead.
you.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So this is how each of these equity maps, and I know, Mark, you have a comment to make, so I'll call on you in a moment here. But the way this map reads, on the top left is the legend that says what amenity is shown. In this case, the top left is neighborhood parks. On the top right is the recommended level of service that says it's 0.5 acre per 1,000 people is the standard. The different colors of the rings indicate who the providers are. Green is the county, brown are the other service providers. And each circle in the center is the actual location of the park. The ring that goes around it essentially shows the service area that is being served. So if the park were 1 acre in size, based on the standard of 0.5 acre per 1,000, the ring would go out till it captures 2,000 people in it. If it's a 0.5 acre park, it would go out till it captures 1,000 people. The reason this is valuable is because it also factors in density of population. Some rings are smaller than the other, even though the parks may be the same size, because there may be significantly more people living there within close proximity of that particular park or amenity. Do you want to add something, Mark?
Yeah, so one of the fun things that we're beginning to do as we look at these maps and identify gaps in service area is begin to think how we address the needs for the more rural areas in the county. If you look at the top of the map, You see those 3 parks there are basically serving the Sheldon and Dale area, right? And then just below that, you see 2 green circles that are on Ladies Island. And below that and to the right, one on St. Helena Island. So if we begin to look at those areas that, as Kyle mentioned, are geographically isolated because of the way the rivers and streams divide our county, we begin to think about access to recreation as it relates to creeks, marshes, and geographic boundaries. So that's one of the things we're going to do when we look at the service areas on Dale and Sheldon neighborhood up in the north, Ladies Island in the east, and then St. Helena Island to the east and south. And when you look at Beaufort and Bluffton, you see that the service areas are much more concentrated. And as Delay mentioned, if you have one park that's serving in a dense population area, the circle's going to be smaller because it doesn't take as big a circle to accumulate the number of people for that park. So in a rural area, that's why the circles are so much bigger. But we've had a lot of fun looking at the Ladies Island and the St. Helena, and we'll share more with you about those as we go forward,
So,
both on neighborhood
Neely,
parks and community parks.
You made a comment about, was it half an acre per citizen, or what was that?
Per,
What was that per
half an
household?
acre per 1,000 people.
Per 1,000 people?
Correct. That's for neighborhood parks.
Okay.
In addition to that, this is community park, which is 2 acres per 1,000 people, right? That's in addition to the half an acre for neighborhood parks. So here you can see, if you look just in the north of the county, there seem to be significant gaps. If you look at each map by itself, they seem underserved. If I look at the neighborhood parks though, all that area is now served, right? So it's not just looking at any one park by itself, it's looking at overall park land as well. And then to Mark's point, identify where are there gaps and where might there be overlaps. The third piece here, the regional parks, that's another one as well as we look at these larger footprints to show how far out they go. In addition, natural resource parks and undeveloped natural resource park. So this is again an area to explore as well, where we have gaps in natural resource areas. The community, and I know y'all are obviously investing and talking about that as well, the community values that too in terms of access to natural and open spaces. Is there potential for some of this undeveloped space to be only mildly developed where there is still room for passive recreation that the community wants and desires, right? So it's looking at each of these maps individually and then together to see countywide across all these amenities, what might be that best fit for each type of recreation use based on different parts of the geographic distribution in the county. So far, so good? Okay. Special purpose, inherently these are special purpose one-off sites, so this is simply documenting where they are. These are the trails, so you can see when the community said paved trails are a huge gap, you can see why. Unpaved trails, also some overlaps and some gaps as well. So as we plan for the future, this gives you and the staff a very defensible approach to be able to look at this transparently and see where are there gaps, where might we better connect what already exists to what's new that's going to be built, because ultimately what the community wants is connectivity. Basketball courts, some areas of overlaps, some areas of gaps. Tennis courts, similar as well. Same with pickleball courts. Diamond fields. Multi-purpose rectangular fields. A lot more overlap in certain areas, gaps in others. Playgrounds, significant overlaps in some areas, specifically with the other service providers as well. Picnic shelters and pavilions that closely match where the playgrounds also are. Outdoor swimming pools, skate parks, splash pads, and dog parks. So you can see a number of these we mentioned, dog parks, splash pad, trails, indoor rec spaces were quantity deficient. Now, if you think of meeting those needs, you can also look at access to say where might we provide for those kinds of amenities in the future. Where do you already have existing parks or land that this could go in as well, and where could we collaborate or repurpose if there's an overlap of certain amenity type? Could that be converted into something else? And indoor aquatic space, as well as recreation spaces. So this, in a nutshell, gives you a good sense of the overall equity maps that leads into this final priority investment rating. So what the survey firm does is, through the two main questions in the survey, they ask about what are all the different amenities that exist. Do you have a need for this, yes or no? And to what extent is your need being met? Those that say they have a need that is unmet and state that something is important to them, that becomes a high priority. So I know for a fact in Beaufort County, cricket fields are a huge unmet need, but they're reported to 5 people. So what you have to balance is what's the greatest good for the greatest number of people. And that's what goes to the top. So it's not to say that basketball courts or athletic fields or baseball and softball fields are not important. It's simply saying in this case, they may be a lower unmet need compared to the other amenities. So what you see on the top, natural areas, wildlife habitats, green space is the highest combination of importance and unmet need. Water access, no surprise. Paved walking, hiking trails, nature center and nature trails, indoor aquatic and swimming facilities, fishing areas, and then, this was a surprise for me, shooting ranges for guns and archery were among the high priorities too. So we zoomed in to show you just the high priorities here. These are all your high priorities. Look at 3 from the bottom. Senior centers, indoor gyms, community rec center. Basically, they're all indoor recreation spaces, essentially. Right? All of them are high priorities. 3 above that, indoor walking, jogging track. And then slightly higher up, indoor aquatic swimming facilities. 6 of your top high priorities can literally be one facility, with recreation, aquatics, multi-generational, multi-purpose altogether. Trails and connectivity, balance of active, passive space. So there are opportunities for clusters as you think of equity maps, as you think of gaps in access and some of these priorities for investment, to see what the community needs, how can you spend the best bang for your buck, and where could they possibly go. Similarly, we did that for programs as well, and in that case too, adult, 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 day trips, senior. 4 of your top 5 are shaped by essentially your population demographic shifts. As I said, 41% of the population is going to be over the age of 55. Most agencies I know do a great job meeting the youth needs. It's often either the teenagers, because they don't want any structured recreation, or it's the families who, in my case, I'm more of an Uber driver for my kids, going from one class or one activity to the other, or the active adults that don't often get served as well. So where can we create more of these multi-generational opportunities and let programs drive future facility and capital design? That's going to be the key. One last thing before then we get into the final recommendations is looking at the sports tourism strategy. As a part of this as well, looking at the fact that you already are a wonderful destination, and just by way of background, I worked at Disney at the Wide World of Sports. I was part of the team for the Super Bowl in Indianapolis, worked for the Olympics in Greece, and was also part of the local organizing committee for the College Football Championship in Indianapolis, where the Dogs won. You're welcome, Shannon. And I'm now part of the NBA All-Star Host Committee as well. So I speak from that, all those lenses in terms of the mega events and the local ones as well, as we looked at some of these avenues. And obviously you have some investments that are going in place. Buck Walter's got fields coming in, Burton World's got fields coming in. Generally what we find, obviously team sports have higher economic impact than individual sports. More people traveling, more heads on beds, more spending, all the rest, but also significantly more competition. Everybody within earshot of you is building bigger more all the time, right? And so part of the goal in something like this is not to duplicate what someone else is doing, unless you can do it 10 times bigger than them. It's to see what is not being served at all, that we may be able to look at and leverage the fact that you already are a destination. Archery has incredible economic impact. Beach volleyball doesn't require a whole lot of infrastructure at all, but volleyball and cheer and dance were the two highest attended events for spectator impact when I worked for Disney at the Wide World of Sports.
You said volleyball and who?
Volleyball
And
and
which-
cheer and dance.
Oh,
Competitions?
Specifically girls volleyball, because when a guy plays, there's one person that goes with him. When a girl plays, the whole family goes with her. And so we had significantly more heads on beds, theme park, all sorts of stuff, right? Economic impact in general. And then again, pickleball as it continues to grow, is that another opportunity to think about as well? So as we looked at this, right, these are some team sports that are certainly gaps. Rectangular sports, rugby was introduced in the Summer Olympics in 2016. It's growing significantly. The Rugby World Cup is going to be hosted in the US in the coming years. Obviously, you know, baseball and softball, certainly a demand. You continue to have tournaments. It's not going away. It's here to stay. But the specialty sports are where we really think there's opportunities for you to explore and look into. Archery, shooting, beach and sand volleyball, right? A lot of things that don't require you to build a whole bunch of facilities, where your natural infrastructure can help a lot more as well. Skateboarding, BMX, road cycling, sport climbing. So we have all this outlined in the report. We have some estimations in terms of how many tournament days, how many participants, estimated spending over 5 years, what that can result in. But in a nutshell, the idea would be looking at one, where can you generate return on investment without spending significant amounts of capital up front? So you're prioritizing the community use and sports tourism. And where are there gaps in niche sports that you could look at versus simply competing with the others on the same team sports that everybody else is already doing? So that in a nutshell are a couple of things on the sports tourism side, and I'll turn it over to Mark for the CIP and the recommendations.
Yeah, thanks, Nilay. Any questions before we move on to capital improvement recommendations?
Can I make a comment?
Going
I'm
forward?
so
Yes.
surprised to see archery up there, and I'm going to tell you why. Clearly, I'm a few years out of college, but archery was big when I was in college. I mean, we all did it. How many community parks are putting in archery and shooting?
Not very many, and that's the thing why there's an advantage. I wouldn't have gone down that rabbit hole looking into it if not for the fact that in your priority investment ratings, the community rated archery shooting ranges as a high priority, higher than an outdoor amphitheater or even community gardens.
Wow.
So that's where it sort of got us thinking more into that as well. Is archery an area that, because there is such a gap and from a sports tourism standpoint, people aren't doing it, it's an Olympic sport, it's going to be there. The Olympics are coming to LA in a few years as well. So there's also this, headwinds leading up to that for us to think about.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think we should keep in mind as we think about sports tourism is what parks do you have in place today that can be good host sites for those, so that you're serving your local population, your local residents, as well as creating a framework for economic development and tourism. And you've got three great sort of regional parks, Buckwalter, Burton Wells, and Oscar Fraser. Oscar Fraser is already being used for tournaments, but the others have tremendous opportunities. We'll talk a little bit more about them as they relate to some of these new tournament opportunities that Nilay's talking about, particularly at Burton Wells. Great opportunities for some of those softer sort of archery and disc golf and things of that nature, that if you could develop those facilities, you'd have a great opportunity and you'd fill a niche. But unlike softball, there's tremendous competition in building and operating tournament softball facilities throughout the county, throughout the state and Southeast, where cities and counties who don't have the beach and the natural draw that we have been building tournament facilities to attract residents for economic development, recreation activity for economic development. If you did it here, you'd have a natural draw anyway, because you've got this, people want to be here, the natural draw.
So you just mentioned in passing disc golf.
Right.
Which seems to be a very popular thing happening these days.
Right.
It could easily be put on the fringes
Yes,
of our facilities.
absolutely.
But I didn't see that come up at all.
Well, you'll see that when we're now moving into capital improvements.
Okay.
You'll see that in recommendations in Burton Wells and I believe Buckwalter. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you. That's a very good observation. So what we do when we start to look at capital improvement investments is take all of the information that we've received today, that Neelay's gone over, that Kyle's gone over, and we begin to think about the park models. And we think, how do we meld those together where we can take advantage of your existing physical assets and bring in some of the recreation needs that have been identified in the master plan throughout the planning process. Because you've got good assets today in terms of land and physical plants, so how do we maximize the value of those? And then what do we do outside of those existing assets? So we'll talk about two sort of groups of opportunities for you. First is in the existing parks. You've got 11 neighborhood parks. We'll go through those. The improvements we're projecting there in all of those parks is about $10.5 million. And you see that at the top of the slide. And we're going to go through each of these as we walk through it. First, Agnes Major and Booker T. Washington. These are up in the Dale and Sheldon area. Also is the what's the third one up there? Gloria Potts are all in that area. When these three parks are improved, these two and Gloria Potts, you'll begin to really enhance the recreation service in that very rural area in the northern part of the county. Agnes Major, centers in poor condition, needs to be improved. Same for Booker T. Washington. You've got a lot of these centers in the county that really you've had deferred maintenance, honestly, over the years, and need to be improved and are in poor condition, but have a great opportunity.
You
Yes.
have from improved from poor to fair,
Right.
and then you got improved from poor to good. You putting some
It depends.
value on.
We are, and it depends on the level of use and the population in the area that is using those facilities.
Okay.
So the next is the Broomfield Center, and this on Ladies Island is an interesting sort of anomaly. And when you begin to think about some of these centers where you've built centers throughout the county, many of which may not be in need, Broomfield is one of those. There's an opportunity to improve Corson Tate. We're looking at improving two community neighborhood parks to elevate them to be more regional in the way they deliver services. One is Corson Tate on Ladies Island. Ladies Island really needs that level of service, and so does St. Helena Island, and we're looking at Wesley Felix there. And if you improve those two parks and elevate them by adding community centers, a small community center, nothing as big as Burton Wells or Buckwalter, but a smaller model of that, and step up the field activity there as well as other recreation offerings, you can begin to serve those two districts in a much better way. And consider not using some of the facilities that are there today, like Broomfield. And you'll find that this facility is in poor condition, and if you do improve Corson Tate, we think you can serve that resident population at a much higher level. The next one that falls into that was, what was the other one on Ladies Island that also, we'll come to that one in a minute, that could also fall into that category. Bruce Edgerly, Port Royal Center, a nice facility. There's some improvements that are being made now. We are pleased to see those and encourage those improvements to go forward. Add paved parking, add ball field lights, and a couple of other improvements there. Charles Lynn. Now, Charles Lynn Center is an interesting one. This center is quite old. It does have some structural and some other sort of integrity problems to the building, to the structure itself. There are some renovations that are going on now. I think that those are fine. Ultimately, we'd like to see this facility be removed and replaced. It's serving a very important constituent population. It's well-placed, well-located, but it's pretty old, and time to renovate or replace that.
Now, you have on there replace.
We'd like to see it come down and be
You
eventually.
putting a lot of emphasis on that?
tear it down, and redo it. Yeah.
That's part of the $10 million?
It's part of the recommendation.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
But just to go back to that one, but not necessarily the pool facility though. You're talking about the physical.
The pool could be preserved, yeah.
Serves a lot
Was that part of the
children.
10 million for neighborhood parks? Do you know? No, the building.
Just the
I believe the
building.
building was, yeah. Dale, a really nice center, well located and serving the population well. We've got a few improvements and recommendations there for improvement. That was one of our community meetings. We met in this facility, very well attended. David Smith is the other one that is on Ladies Island. And this facility is not being well used, and it could be excluded from your system and not renew that lease. Francis Jones is on Defusky Island. It's fine. There's some improvements that have been made there and new improvements that are being considered. As you move forward, we think those are good. Gloria Pot's a really nice center. Its renovations to the kitchen have just been completed and need to improve the parking in there. A couple of other minor improvements included. Shell Point, good condition, a very nice park in that neighborhood and meeting the need. There are a couple of recommendations there. Scott is another one of these centers that's kind of been, we've been struggling with this one, to be honest with you, what to do. So we've given you three options. Go to option 3, don't renew the lease and move the activity here to Wesley Felix. We think St. Helena Park and Wesley Felix could be improved with a small gym and community center, and really could be a wonderful way to meet the needs on St. Helena Island. If you look at the map, the dot on the right is Wesley Felix. The dot on the left is the Scott Center. They're about 5 miles apart, but to invest in Wesley Felix and really begin to invest in recreation services on St. Helena Island would go a long way to serve that entire district and community. Option 1 shows another, just improve the center, the basketball, tennis, and one of the ball fields. There's 2 ball fields at Scott. One is across the road and one is adjacent to the center. Option 1 would keep one of those, and then option 2 would be relinquish both of all of the outdoor playing fields and just improve the center. Keep in mind that if you have ball fields there, you're really beginning to tax your maintenance crews to go out and mow and maintain those facilities when really they aren't getting the same level of service, and you're not programming them for league play. So those are 3 options. Any questions or comments on those for Scott? Some fun. Basel Green, a wonderful facility. Again, very old and in need of renovation. We're recommending that those ball fields be reconfigured in a way that are easier to maintain and operate. A new concession facility there, new playground and picnic shelters. The Bluffton Center, wow, what a great asset in Bluffton, a great recreation asset. It's got soccer, it's got a gym. It's used as a civic building for quite a lot of activities. There's some recommendations for improvements there. Add a splash pad. We saw a lot of interest in your community meetings and survey for water-based recreation. We're doing a lot of splash pads throughout the Southeast where they are a great way to deliver water-based recreation at a more affordable way, but also your swimming pools are very important, but splash pad there would go a long way. Corson Tate, great facility, great location. This is one of the community parks we're recommending that it be expanded to be a little more regional in the way it delivers its recreation services. Add a gym, A small community center gym, 30,000, not the big, Burton Wells or Buckwalter sized facilities, dog park and a couple of other facilities. So with Corson Tate and Wesley Felix, you could really, those two parks, you could go a long way to deliver services on St. Helena Island and Ladies Island. Those two rural communities.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Where is Corson Tate?
Corson Tate is Ladies Island, I'd
Ladies
say
Island.
middle of the island.
Got you. I know
Yeah.
exactly where it is.
Springfield Road.
I got you. I know exactly where it is. Okay.
Yeah. And it's just east of Scott, about 5 miles east of Scott Center.
No, no, I
Right
know
down the
exactly-
road.
I know where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a great piece of property. We would like to see or recommend that that property have some additional acreage and you build some additional fields. And it already sets up very nicely to be an improved recreation asset. Any other questions on that? No? Okay. MC Riley, another great facility, quite old, but some of the facilities there are very nice. The pavilion you see on the bottom left, wow, what a really cool and well-loved facility. Ball fields need to be reconfigured so that they're easier to operate and maintain. Concession in the middle, new concession, so that they're more traditional, conventional, the way they deliver services. Wesley Felix is the other park. This one's on St. Helena, much like Corson Tate, could be expanded to become one of those sort of sub-regional recreation destinations. In the county, a great asset. We're recommending adding some acreage there as well. So that's the community parks. Now regional parks, there are 3 or 4 of those in the county, recommending about close to 40 million in improvements there. Buckwalter, wow, what a great recreation asset in the middle of Bluffton. Current plans call for adding 4 ultimately artificial turf fields there. This facility is very heavily used. You have a tremendous demand on soccer. It's hard to keep that turf alive and healthy and vibrant. When we see fields that are being used that heavily, we typically see them go to artificial turf, which is what this recommends. The gymnasium is well loved and got tremendous positive feedback from the constituents that we polled. Renovate the existing restrooms that are out by the soccer field is recommended to expand that with concessions. Add a maintenance facility, and then complete the tennis center. If you notice the master plan at the top, the left end of that panhandle there is a tennis center, which is would go to meet a tremendous demand in the Bluffton region. Could be a very nice addition. Burton Wells is your other big sort of flagship park, if you will. There are 8 pickleball courts underway now, which are going to go a long way to satisfy your pickleball population, which a lot of, they're very vocal advocates for pickleball. It's just like, and they're trying to catch up because there's a tremendous growth in that.
Could you go back to Buckwalter?
Yes.
At the end, what's the disc golf?
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, so.
It's way fun if you don't play real golf.
You
It's
mean,
not real
what
golf.
is it? It's frisbee.
It's frisbee, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the good thing about disc golf is you can weave it through the trees around the perimeter of the park, and it doesn't, you don't cut trees, it doesn't require a lot of effort.
Okay.
If you'd like to see one, it's at USCB right off 278.
Okay.
It's interwoven to the trees and you
Yeah.
flip the thing and it goes in a basket.
Yeah, they're very hard discs though,
Yep.
they're,
Okay.
and they have a different disc for putting and chipping and long,
Yep.
it's a pretty involved sport. So
I'm
back to-
sorry, I'm learning every year.
Yeah, no, it's a great.
Last year, I just learned pickleball, so
Yeah.
now I'm learning disc golf.
Disc golf, there you
Okay,
go.
good.
Well, and I agree with Neela, disc golf could be a wonderful, if you had those facilities, a wonderful opportunity for you to attract tournaments here. There's a tremendous, constituent of people out there playing disc golf who would come here. They would love to come to Beaufort, and that's going to generate, heads and beds. It's going to generate traffic for your restaurants, which is really what the whole sort of economic opportunities are from sports tourism. So Burton Wells, wow, again, what a awesome recreation asset for you. There are some drainage issues that need to be addressed. We've listed those on some of the rectangular fields. You should invest in subsurface drainage. There's a couple of playgrounds. The ball fields on the eastern half of this park are quite old and need to be redone, and add a third baseball field. When you add that third baseball field there together with the three on the left, you'll have a facility that could be used for regional tournaments here and serve your local constituents as well as the soccer. You've got a pretty significant soccer presence here. The gymnasiums, there's such demand there. We're recommending the additional gymnasium space. And then to address a lot of the sports tourism opportunities, climbing walls, zip lines, indoor, outdoor archery, shooting ranges, BMX biking, sand volleyball, all of these things would fit very nicely in Burton Wells. What a, excuse me, what an awesome piece of property. And then you've got the opportunity to build the RV park and the camping together with the splash pad and the other activity. That lake is a really awesome asset. There's an amphitheater at the north end of it that's never been developed. That amphitheater could be developed to really become a draw for residents throughout the county, for your residents. Oscar Frazier, another awesome asset that's well loved by the community residents. Beaufort Tennis was just improved. And then special purpose sites. There, Battery Creek, Beaufort Pool, Bluffton Pool, all of those are well attended. There are still, you've renovated some of them, you've had some roof difficulties, continue to renovate those. They're important, very important assets. I mean, we're a county surrounded by water. If we can't engage our children in swimming, then I think we're misserving our residents. And wow, what a great opportunity to teach our kids how to swim and have that as a recreation opportunity. Meds Field, another, now this is sort of an anomaly. It's a field in the middle of a residential neighborhood, very little parking. It's hard to use, but it's this great little neighborhood field that if improved and polished to jewel, it could be a wonderful asset for you. Southside Tennis, there are plans to improve that. We would encourage those plans to be moved forward. I believe pickleball is being considered there as well, underway. The restroom building and the pavilion are pretty old there and need to be honestly replaced. Wright Family Park just done in downtown Bluffton, very nice. Camp St. Mary's is being shifted to Stephanie with Natural Resources. Great asset, Camp St. Mary, wow. I would encourage you to support passive parks programming there on that site. And then other facilities outside of your existing parks that had a high priority rating that really do need to be addressed. There's a recommendation for a indoor aquatic and swimming facility. And more than just what you have in your 3 pools, but really an indoor aquatics facility. And finding a home for that, it might be in the Okatee area. You need to give some thought to where that would go. Shooting ranges for both guns and archery, scored very high in your public opinion survey. I know you've said there's been a lot of controversy about, do you want to do shooting ranges in Beaufort County? But your constituents found it to be high ranked, or it did rate ranked high. Indoor walking and jogging, very popular. You have the example at Buckwalter in the bottom. If you build the new gyms at Wesley, Felix, St. Helen, and Corson Tate, certainly should include those in those centers as you move forward. Outdoor amphitheater, we mentioned the Burton Wells has got that great amphitheater opportunity at the end of the lake. You could improve that to become a great venue for events. Outdoor aquatics and swimming, we think that those are very important. You need a pool, an outdoor pool somewhere, another one. perhaps at Wesley Felix, St. Helena, as that center is expanded. And then seniors, we think that the seniors programming at Wesley Felix and Corson Tate should be very much part of the program as you add those, and then the indoor gyms there as well. And then finally, community centers, the two at Wesley Felix and Corson Tate, and then splash pads, add those to Burton Wells and Bluffton. We continue to see quite a bit of those develop throughout the
I
community.
had a
Yes.
question about splash
Yes, ma'am.
pads, because I'm on the South Side Task Force group. and
Okay.
Splash pads, we were told, are so expensive and maintenance is so difficult. Do we really want, I mean, I'm just asking, because y'all were the ones that said
Yeah.
it about Southside Park. You know, are pools better than having a splash pad, or is it an either or choice?
I don't think that they would be if you compared the maintenance of a pool to a splash pad. There's a lot of maintenance annual maintenance that goes into a pool as well. Certainly the capital improvement or the investment would be less for a splash pad. But you should maintain the pumps in the system. What we typically recommend is a recirculating system, which means that it's not potable water that's being discharged and very wasteful, but you recirculate the system. That means it has to have a very good water treatment system in it. So, and that has to be maintained, you're right. But
You don't run into having to have lifeguards and.
I see. You don't have those
Yeah.
extra costs.
Right, so the splash pad is lesser.
Is it like the,
and just hugely popular today.
is it like that down at Cligney Beach? They
It's a
have
Cligney.
something like
But
that?
that's a miniature version,
Oh,
Caligari
that's a
Beach
miniature.
Park, that's just jets. Splash pads typically have equipment and buckets that dump and, water
Oh,
interact.
wow.
They're so much fun, yeah.
Who said they had to be for kids?
They're for
No,
kids.
but everybody.
Maybe for adults too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Put on your bathing suit and run through the water.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
exactly.
Yes, go ahead.
Have a blast.
Is that what Charleston has?
Yes,
James Island, is
That-
that the?
Right,
really?
James
Oh.
Island County Park.
that's actually what I was gonna ask, because I
Yeah.
know a lot
And
of folks
others.
from here actually travel to the James Island County Park for the splash pad.
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yeah, and apparently they have a free and a paid version. Is any of that?
Well, James Island County Park has a, more than just a splash pad, it actually has a
The-
water park.
Yeah, the water park, yeah,
And that's
that's
the
right.
paid version,
Yeah.
which is
Be
huge.
nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, let me ask you a question. We're
Yeah.
talking about water parks.
Yes.
I don't see anything with boating, et cetera, and, if I take something like Burton Wells, that lake right there.
Right.
How large a lake is that? Is that is it
They're,
adequate for some kind of
Yes.
boating activity, like, a lot of, I would take kids out on paddle boats.
right, right.
But also canoeing and
Kayak,
learning how to kayak and stuff
Right.
in these little lakes and stuff.
yeah.
Is that not even part of the,
I think that lake would be ideal for that. There is a canoe and kayak dock in the Burton Wells Lake. It's already there.
okay,
We encourage that to continue to be used. And as you look at programs and services, we see many county recreation agencies step up their sort of training and teaching about kayaking, and the lake like that would be an excellent facility to train and teach kayaking, so that when they do get ready to go out on the creeks, on the marshes surrounding the county, throughout the county, they're
I
trained. to
didn't know that, but I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I
James
would-
Island County Park is one of those parks. They have a huge canoe and kayak training.
Yeah, I know, they do.
And, yeah, and a lot of private vendors want to participate in that because they come and they show their canoes and kayaks, and they
Sure.
encourage participants to buy their equipment. So, yeah, it's a great way to do that. And then ultimately, we can see the total capital improvement cost, it's about $100 million. I'd say 10-year plan, $10 million a year, something like that.
Wow.
As you begin to go forward. So what we want to do now is just open it up for questions. Yeah, next steps, we're going to modify, we'll continue to take input through staff from you And we'll modify and finalize the plan. We're going to take all of the stuff that we've presented to you today and publish it in a binder. We'll give those reports to staff for their review with their sign off on it. We'll come back to you with that final report for it to be adopted, to be moved forward. We expect that we'll be working with staff in August with that draft, and then come back to you shortly thereafter. But we just want to open it up for any questions or comments that you have. I've tried to move through this quickly, so I hope we didn't keep you too long. Yes.
David, go then.
Going back to the splash pads,
Yes.
is it better to have smaller splash pads or more centralized? I know you said that you had the Bluffton, the Buckwalter Center there. Is it better to have a larger facility for those, or would it be better to have smaller, spread out? I don't know much about the maintenance
I
side
think
of it.
well, when you talk about water parks can get very large. If you're going to do a water park with water slides and play structures in standing water and all of that, I think it becomes regional, and then you should do sort of a regional program. If you're talking about splash pads, those can be spread out and done. They're smaller, and you can do those more regionally throughout the county. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
You know, there's no, go ahead.
Certainly, the information you presented today is a lot.
Yes.
So first, I would hope that we're going to get all of that on an interim basis, that we can just kind of peruse it, digest it,
Yes.
and then be able to come back with more intelligent questions as you move
Okay.
forward. Because one of the things that are loud and clear, we all live here, we all work here, we all play here. And over the course of time, all of those things are going to grow. More people are coming here, more people are going to work here, and more people are going to play here. And so what we want to do is to have a plan for the future that will address those needs in a timely fashion. So thank you for what you.
Well, you're welcome, and to your point, we have left a copy of this presentation in PDF form with you. It is on your computer. You'll be able to circulate that to each of you, and we would encourage you to take that and study it, review it. Please do give us feedback. I think that's going to help us do our job better for you. Yes?
Quickly, when I look at Burton Wells, that's a lot of acreage out there. I don't know how much, but is it being utilized, about 30% being utilized, or?
Good question. Burton Wells is really a unique piece of land. Our firm did the original master plan back in, when, Kyle, do you know? Maybe 2000, I'm trying to remember when it was done. And now we've recently done this update. If you look at the core of that piece of land there, it's primarily wetland, but it's not salt marsh wetland, it's wooded wetland, and it's beautiful wooded wetland. So we think it has a lot, so it has to be preserved and set aside. But it has a lot of value as it relates to nature and interpretation of boardwalks, things of that nature. But what the park is an incredible physical asset, as well as a great sort of recreation opportunity. If you look at the eastern half, see the green areas surrounding the developed area, all of that is wooded wetland. And then you see the developed areas that are concentrated in the uplands. Just to the left of the red buildings is the disc golf. You can see the white lines barely going up into the field. So that's a timber forest. To the right, you see the lake, and then the bottom right. It's a large piece of property, but it has a lot of wooded wetland.
Yeah, so I guess we should actually preserve that wooded area. I do know that the bald eagles out there and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So
Great natural habitat, resource habitat, but also a great opportunity for you when you complete the park to accomplish a lot of the goals that your residents are asking you to accomplish.
Good.
It's a good physical asset, great piece of land.
Yeah. I've had a lot of folks ask me about online scheduling for our ball field. Was that something that was outlined in your report, basically open up access to individuals to reserve parks and ball fields online?
We didn't get into that level of nuance in terms of programming and operation, but I will say that these recommendations include the addition of the significant addition of ball field assets. Wesley Felix, Corson Tate, taking Buckwalter and improving those to become artificial turf, and then taking this project and improving those three. I mean, throughout the report, there are recommendations for improvements to both baseball and soccer. And we think youth sports are essential here. You just have more families and more children than you can serve in your current offerings.
So,
Yes.
Mark, let me ask you a question then. I've saw a couple times on there talking about RV or miniature golf. And I know in the
Right.
past, the county has tried to do an RFP for zip lining, and obviously those would be kind of private public kind of deals. Is that something that y'all recommend, is, say, if we don't have the cash to do it, whether it's something that, talk about archery, supplying land for a third party to come in and actually run an archery facility, or the putt-putt golf thing that you have
Right.
up on there?
Right.
How does that work into your study, or is that something you just look at county facilities run by the county, maintained by the county, paid for, that have been services towards the public?
No, I think public-private partnerships are a great way to begin to meet some of the demand that we've identified. So we're identifying the demand, and then the next step is begin to think about strategies for implementation. But public-private partnerships are commonly used in the recreation industry, not only for recreation facilities, but for food and beverage. It's not uncommon for recreation departments to partner with private sector to deliver those services. So I think it'd be something to consider.
Couple of suggestions as well. There are specific entities called, one of them is a Sports Facility Authority, SFA, that they are basically in the business of running sports facilities for you. Right, so you've got the land, you build them, and their goal is to help run that in a way that promotes financial sustainability and sports tourism. There's an entity called Go Ape that actually works with park and recreation agencies. There's one in Indianapolis. You're welcome to come visit me. I'd love to take you there. But we've got our version of, Burton Wells and Buckwalter called Eagle Creek Park, in which they have designed an entire zip line course, and they essentially run as a third-party vendor in the regional park in the city. So there are a lot of these opportunities in terms of providers. You don't have to be all things to all people, right? What you have is the asset in terms of land, and depending on each of these kinds of offerings, the partnership could certainly look very different. But we're seeing more and more of these from healthcare and insurance providers to not only be users of a facility, but also be partners in terms of naming rights and corporate sponsorships because of the wellness component. And then you have third-party vendors and operators that can actually run these for you as well.
So when you get ready to move into the implementation phase, those are some of the recommendations we can make for you as you go forward. So, I mean, great opportunities. And as Neelay says, you've got the physical assets.
Any other questions? And what's our purpose today, is just to
hear the report and be advised that the administration will be bringing recommendations on a funding plan for paying for some of these improvements. A lot of the improvements are already underway. They were mentioned here, and we're making some other modifications to the overall structure and organization of Parks and Recreation as well. And we'll be reporting back to you on those very shortly.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, what was
Yes.
the total number of dollars, Larry McKellen, the total number of dollars in your slides? Did anyone ever add them up, or did it break the computer?
We did. The bottom line was 100 million. right at 100.
Okay, that's good.
98 million. They
Thanks,
skipped
Mark.
that
Great to
line
see
real
you.
quick.
Actually,
Went through that.
good jobs, everybody did, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Larry. 98 million.
Close enough, 100 million.
You working with Jeff something?
Yeah,
it's
100 million
by
the time you implement it.
140 million by the time.
Larry hit it?
Larry stole my question, and I saw $100 million
Right.
over a 10-year period of time, so is that $10 million a year?
Yeah.
I guess that's what that'll be put in my mind, but anyway, so we need to start planning now.
Good. Any more questions? Mark, thank you. And
You're
Neely
welcome.
and Kyle, thank you for your presentation, your staff today, and you guys always do a wonderful job, so glad you all came back today.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
All right, let's move on then to our next agenda item, number 12, the ARPA Good Neighbor Program, Yemassee fundraising requests. And I think, I don't see Hank here today. Is Hank going to present this?
No, we won't present anything. This is just the second half of the Yemassee request for their $500,000 in the Good Neighbor Plan. If you have any questions, Jared is here to answer them for you.
I would move that item.
Okay.
How much did they ask for, Eric?
$500,000.
It's, I think this is $250,000. They were already awarded $250,000. This is their second $250,000.
Got it, thank you.
All right, and then,
No, we didn't get a vote yet. I made the motion, we didn't get a second or a vote.
No second.
all right, and any more discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will pass without objection. No objection. We are good to go. All right, and then agency boards, commissions, appointments, and reappointments. Actually, my computer just went down here. Hang on a second.
Chairman, if you take off both of them, move.
Yes, we take both at the same time, and
I so
we've
move.
got recommend approval for,
Roosevelt McCullum
you were there.
for the Ladies Island St. Helena Fire Department.
Good. Keep going. You're doing good.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, that's, and then
That
you
was
have-
number one.
That's number one, and Henry Chris, for
number
the
two.
Low Country Regional Transportation Authority Board,
Do we have
for a
a
3-year appointment.
motion to appoint them?
Yes, sir, I
All right,
motion.
and is there a second? All right, there's a second. Any objection? Seeing no objection, they have been appointed. And that will move to council for a reading there. Is there any other things that need to come before this board, this committee? Seeing none, we are adjourned.
Thank you. Roosevelt told me he was getting off the fire.
Try not to.